on the show, Jasmine Srnicek and I chat about how she's built a fantastic business, funding lots of mortgages and doing it the old-fashioned way by building relationships. And we dive into how she does networking events, how she keeps track of people that she meets at these networking events, which has been hundreds of people at this point, and then how she uses that to find business when she finds she has a slow moment. She can use that to go out and get more business. It's an absolutely fantastic conversation with Jazz. She's got such great energy, such a positive, upbeat person. And honestly, you're going to love hearing her story and how she does it and just the mindset that she takes and applies to this. Hey, I'm Scott Beckford. This is the Outlet Mortgage Brokering Podcast. For every week, we commit to bringing you ideas and tools and tactics to help you grow your mortgage business. And I love these conversations because sometimes it's not about being taught something new. It's about being reminded of the things that you were doing that you stopped doing. And I really feel like this conversation with Jazz is a perfect example of that. And I really think you're going to dig it. So jump in, have a listen, and then I'll come back and just give you my thoughts at the end. Hey, Jazz, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Scott.
I'm so excited to chat with you. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into the mortgage biz.
Right. So I am a mortgage broker in London, Ontario. I actually have my project management professional designation and worked as a project manager at a large defense company. And I was really looking for something more in my life. And I had young children at the time of COVID. And I've always really been a finance nerd. And someone said, hey, have you ever thought about becoming a mortgage broker? And initially the answer was no. And I thought, you know what? You never know unless you try. So I got licensed. I did 1 year where I worked part-time as a mortgage broker. And then I resigned from my really lovely corporate job 3 years ago this week.
Wow. And so how did you know when to resign? Like what was what did you have some kind of metric in mind, or what did somebody listening to this who's still doing this part-time just to kind of help
great
them
question.
think through
So for me, it came down to making sure I loved it. In my first year, I was able to do 10 files while working part-time. So I was able to get a reasonably good gauge for whether or not I liked the work. Once I knew I liked the work, I really felt confident that I could get it done. So I really, financially, I made sure that I did have some savings put aside, because I recognize it does take a couple months to get up and running. But truthfully, once you figure out that you like it, I think you're going to be super successful at it, and you should really just jump in.
And just lean into it. Okay. And then in that second year, how many files did you do? Do you remember?
Once you went 33. Full-time?
Right. But where did the files come from? Because I assume I don't think you had you didn't have a background in real estate or anything being a project manager.
No, not at all. So I did market to my previous organization. So I definitely received a few files from them, but I did go out and network. So once I went all in, my job was to go and meet as many people as I possibly could and tell them about how I can help them with their mortgage. So I did reach out to a number of networking groups here in London, and not only just reached out, but made sure I got to know the members. It's not just going to the meetings, it's getting to know as many people as possible. And then organically it would grow.
Okay. So of the 33 files, how many do you think came from your networking groups and activities?
I would say probably 25 to 30%.
Okay. Where did the rest come from?
I did have a number of realtors that I had made connections with. And similarly, that was also from going out and, attending different open houses, things like that. I was always my goal was really, I would meet someone, I would say, let's go out for coffee. Now, I'm not very good at your typical sales, so I'm not going to be the broker at a coffee talking about how I am the best mortgage broker. I'm going to be the person that you're having coffee with that's getting to know you, getting to know what you like, and building an actual relationship and connection. And from there, I find that business comes.
Right. So you focus on building the relationship. I mean, you're very, anybody who's met you in person knows you're a lovely human. You got such good energy and you're positive. And it's amazing. Stevie D would always say, double your enthusiasm and you'll double your sales. And so if you just being excited and upbeat instead of oh, how's it going? Oh, terrible day. You wouldn't believe it. You can't sell like that. You can't persuade people or motivate. Who wants to work with people that are in that headspace, right?
I absolutely agree.
How do you stay, and have you always been upbeat and positive, and if, yeah. or if not, how, and then how do you stay there when you do have rough days?
So I actually am always like this. And what I found interesting is in my old career, when I was in project management and I would lead a number of different teams and, get everybody excited about what we were doing. Oftentimes people would say, Jazz, how are you so upbeat at 8 o'clock in the morning or what have you? And that's when I realized that there was another option for me from a career perspective where being genuinely who I was going to really benefit me. So there's the odd down day. And what I do, Scott, on my down days when it comes to mortgage files is I drive and I pass 100 houses in 30 seconds. And I say, they all need a mortgage. So it just reminds me there's so much business out there. I just need to go and meet more people.
Right. That's a great perspective. And so you do have a down day. I mean, I think I've been accused of being toxically positive, and which is a good thing. Like I can find the positive in almost anything. And so, but you've been like this since a child. You remember, like even as a child, you were always you just had a bluebird on your shoulder, as they say.
I did. And I mean, if I'm being totally honest, I think, it had a lot to do with my mom, who just always encouraged me and really just never made me think that there was limitations in life in some strange way. But
my mom did the same with me.
Yeah. And I try to do it with my children too. Like even when I think about making this career change, like it was a really big deal for me and my family. But what it did is it got to show my kids that A, you can take risks and you can, achieve so much. And B, I take my kids and pick them up from school every single day. And so I have a totally different life now where I can be at their field trips and all those amazing things that I am so excited to be a part of.
Right. Well, so you mentioned your project manager. What's the best skill or habit that you took from that role that's helped you be better as a mortgage broker?
Yes. So there's a couple. Number one is how to negotiate with people to get what you need them to do done, even though they don't necessarily work for you directly. So when it comes to lenders, for example, I am all in with obviously developing those relationships with them. But then further, I have this skill of being able to negotiate with them to get help from them efficiently, making sure my files are moving along. Secondly, it's my follow-up. It is top notch. There is no file that has not, to be honest, closed when it's supposed to close because I follow up with everyone throughout the process. I over communicate. And those are really skills where I look at each mortgage almost like a project where you initiate it all the way to close it.
Right. Okay. So you said there's two things. There's two kind of things you packed. I want to unpack both of them. So the first, sounds like you treat your lender partners like partners and friends, and you get more out of them. So give me an example of something you do that is second nature for you that helps you build better relationships with them.
Yes. So obviously I pick up the phone whenever they call, but more than that, I will send a thank you. And, it sounds silly and it should be second nature for all of us. But most recently I had my main BDM had stepped aside and I had a new one for a week and they were so overly helpful that I sent them a Starbucks gift card. It's $20. Right. It's super small. Some lenders can't accept it, but I just really want people to know how much I appreciate their help because their help is what helps get my files through the door probably faster and easier than potentially another broker.
Right. And when they're busy, I mean, relationships still matter. Even though we've got all this technology, if they're looking at two files and yours is there and you're awesome to work with and your files are clean, they're going to say yes. Right. Or they're going to pull your file up quicker and look at it. Remember Jim Tolucas told me that when his underwriter calls him, the Scotia underwriter, he puts his client on hold and answers the phone.
Right.
And like he could act, because he does a lot of it, he could act like the big deal, right? He could be like, oh, I'm the big deal. But he's like, no. I understand the dynamic of this relationship. And if I want to have a great mortgage business, I have to treat my lenders like partners and not treat them like they are, hey, snap my fingers, do this for me. Because that's never going to work. And so that's a really good skill. So it's just doing little things to say thank you. Is there anything else that you do that you think that helps build better connections with them?
Well, I definitely, if they're around locally, I would I'd love to meet them in person, right? We don't always have that luxury, but definitely it's important to me. But I also make sure I actually read the information that they send out. There's so many valuable emails coming from our lenders with different opportunities, different changes to policies that can really help your clients. So you want to make sure that you are paying attention to those emails and reading them and reaching out if you have questions. Things change so much in our industry so quickly as it relates to regulations. And I want to make sure that I am an expert and on top of everything.
Right. So back to you're not actually asking dumb questions because you've looked at the emails. I mean, yeah, if I'm fully honest, when I was a brokering, I did not pay as much attention to those. Although there weren't as many as there are now either. There's a lot.
There is a lot.
Yeah. Okay. You talked about follow up through the process, building great relationships. So give me some examples of things you do through the loan process that you feel help you build those better connections with clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So the very first thing I do is make sure I thank every single person who reaches out and provides me with a contact. I mean, what a gift it is to have somebody trust you enough and give you somebody to contact to discuss a mortgage. So I always send similarly a Starbucks gift card just for making that connection. And also at our brokerage, we have we have an entry to win up to a $2,500 mortgage payment. So I make sure that I send that out immediately. Then I, of course, follow up with the client. I do a lot of video work, Scott. So oftentimes if I'm at my computer, I will make a video saying hello to the client, who I am, how excited I am to work with them. And similar to what you had indicated, my energy, I want them to know kind of who I am, what my energy is like. Believe it or not, my energy might not be for everybody. But
Right.
most times when people see that, they're like, wow, you know what? She seems professional. She communicates effectively. I'm really excited to work with her. We don't have the gift where we get to meet people in person as much as, years ago.
Yeah, that's true. And then the other, I like the video because you can actually then they can see your not only like your tone, your personality. It's harder to get that across in an email.
Yes.
And so, and also it's faster because you can talk something much faster than you can write it out grammatically, as well as make sure that it's not confusing.
Right. And okay. I do similarly, I'll do a video at, when I'm reviewing budgets and scenarios. And then I also do a video at signing package time. I think so many brokers just send all those documents over, and they don't walk the client through them. And it's a really big deal for people. They want to feel educated and informed and understand what they're signing.
Right. And then the win your mortgage payment. So how does that go? Like how do you frame that when you bring it up?
Right.
So what does that look like?
I'll bring it up when I do have coffee dates with different people. And then I will always make sure throughout the process that I identify that to the clients as well. So number one, my realtor partners or financial planning partners, they're well aware of it up front. They'll get an email as soon as they have been entered. And then through the process at some of those wow moments, that's when I tend to always advise the client as well that, listen, if you know someone else who could use my help, you get entered into this really cool draw, and you do get a lot of input and a lot of people are interested in it.
Right. How many entries do you think you've got so far? Do you know?
Oh, I haven't calculated, but I would say probably 300-ish, maybe.
Wow.
I have not yet won though. That's the real question.
But we do it at our brokerage, and you see this like it's all done live, so it will happen. It's just it's a time thing. Basically, and then okay, I like that. I like that a lot actually. So the other thing that we talked about is you seem to be really good at building relationships. So the networking piece, when you go to a networking event, what's going on in your head? Because when I go to networking events, I prefer to talk to one or two people or speak on stage. If I got to talk to lots of people, I actually get overwhelmed. So what stories in your head that makes it so that you show up and you're having fun compared to me, who's like, think I'm going to die.
Right. And not every day is amazing. But I will say generally, I am going in there with the goal of making sure I say hello to everybody. I connect with everybody. Oftentimes there'll be a round table where you get to, say a little piece about your business. I always try to talk about a client experience so that people can say, oh, you know what? I didn't even think that you could renew or change lenders, or, I always try to show them an example of something that I've done to help someone. So it really stays with them. And then further to that, if there are new people who are coming to the group that maybe I have never met before, I definitely make a point of going over and connecting with them, sharing our contact information. And then I follow up with them immediately after the meeting. So when I get home, I make sure I send them an email about how lovely it was to meet them. And it organically creates that relationship. And then,
Right.
Maybe a few weeks later, we then go out for coffee or what have you. And it's real. It's a real connection, and it really just helps to grow your business.
Yeah, no, it's good. So basically, that your intention is just what I picked up on this, to say hello to everybody. So if you go into some kind of a networking thing, the second is you're going to tell a story. You said a client experience, but really you're telling a story.
Yes.
Because the story is far more interesting than just data, right? If you're like, oh, so then people, and they'll remember the story. They'll forget everything but the story. Then you'll identify new people, introduce yourself. How do you track these connections and not? Because I think somebody like me, and maybe some people listening, it's like, oh shoot, I met 6 people or whatever. How do you keep track of who you met and what they're keep them sorted in your mind so that when you go circle back, what do you do there? Do you have any tricks?
I have been using an Excel spreadsheet for many years, and I will add every contact in it and where I found, like where we had that original connection. I also actually have a column where I say like the last time I spoke with them, so if, for example, it's Friday afternoon and Jazz doesn't have a ton on her plate, I'll open up my Excel spreadsheet and look and just go through it and see who I haven't connected with in the last couple of weeks and just send a random happy Friday email. So it's a way that I always am reaching out and making sure that I am on top of mind. I have recently started using My Broker Pro. I'm not fully ready for it to be automated yet, but I am starting to add my contacts in there as well to get away from my.
How many people are on that Excel sheet?
Right now, there's about 600.
Right. So if you're listening to that, you're paying attention. She basically said she'll go to these events. She'll make sure she's the intention of saying hi. She'll tell stories, connect with people, follow up with them, but then you're tracking it. And then when you're not busy, you're just basically going through that list going, oh, who can I connect with?
Yes.
And can you give me examples of like business that you got from this? Like that you can think of, like some, like that have been, transformative or great referral partners?
Yes. So, one is even just a client himself.
Basically, tell me a story, Jazz. Tell me a story.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. So also there's the London Chamber of Commerce. I'm sure there's a Chamber of Commerce in every city and all of your listeners' areas. I would go to those meetings, and there was a speed networking event, which I thought was kind of fun. So we attended, and you give your card out to everybody. Every card that I got, I came home and I emailed them. No one else did that because I didn't receive any from anybody else. Now, out of that, I continued to follow up, and one of the people reached out for their own personal mortgage. So that to me takes a very little amount of time to then, have that.
What was the dollar amount of that mortgage? Just so I want to try to calculate approximately
$650.
Right. So $6,000 or something mortgage. Right. And how much time did you spend to have to reach out to those folks?
Goodness, I'm very efficient. So that would not take me a lot of time. It would maybe take me 20 minutes when I get home from the meeting.
And then how many cards did you get at that event?
I would say 45. It was a large event.
Right. So you got 45 cards, reach out to everybody. And again, lots of people go to these events. If you're listening to this, people will tell you go to events, but you're only doing half the job. It's like you're not doing the follow-up, and you will stand out just from the follow-ups, like that alone, because no one does it, or hardly anyone does it.
And I find myself, when I attend events, people don't follow up with me, right? And
they'll say to you, "Oh, we got to get together." Like you say all this crap, and it's actually just crap. They're not actually meaning it.
Right.
Right. Okay. So that's really good. And then, so how do you, I want to switch to your business now. So how do you keep organized in your files and make sure that you don't lose anything? Because you're doing quite a bit of few files now. So walk me through what you're doing there.
Right. So I'm generally just a very organized human. And I
guess you're a project manager. So that probably, it helps if you have that in your DNA.
It is. And I find it relatively easy to keep organized. So right now, I really do keep everything in my Excel spreadsheet. I have, client's name, where they came from, closing date. I have a few columns for, where I am in the process. I also rely on Finmo a fair bit. That's the application software that I use. I will, again, like whenever I have a down moment, I will open up Finmo and I will go through every person and where are they at? Oh, I haven't talked to them in a while. Let's reach out to them. So I don't necessarily have a CRM up and running yet that is doing that for me, but I genuinely like doing the follow up. I find it's personal. When I send a birthday email, it's not like my generic. It's, hey, happy, it's gorgeous out today. I want them to know that I am personally sending this email.
Right.
I usually try to touch on the weather because they'll know that it isn't automated if it's beautiful out. And so I recognize as my business.
Yeah, like, hey, what do you think of the tariffs? Happy birthday. Just kidding.
I recognize as
no,
my
let's
business.
not go there. But okay, you face, that's a great idea. You personalize it somehow in order to and make it so that it's actually they realize it's you as a person doing it.
Exactly. And I recognize as my business grows, there is going to be a need for some automation. But right now, I am really able to keep on track of everything pretty efficiently.
Right. So let me ask you this. So sometimes, if you're good at building relationships, sometimes things don't always go according to plan. So can you think of an example of where maybe a relationship was at risk of kind of unraveling? How would you handle that? So it was especially a relationship that you wanted to maintain.
Right.
And if you have a story or example, even better.
Ooh, Scott, that's a tough one. Okay, so you know what? There would definitely be the odd realtor partner that, you maybe started working with when you were newer in the business. And maybe at that point, I wasn't quite as good at, keeping them feeling loved, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I want every partner to know how much I value them because I really, really do. It's really how my business grows if anyone is able to refer me to help them. So there was a real estate agent that I had done her mortgage when I had first started. And then we did kind of fall off. I wasn't maintaining that connection as well as I should have. And really all it took was me reaching back out, remembering what it was that she loved doing. So in this example, this woman she loved crafting. And there was an upcoming crafting market locally. So, you know what? I just reached out again with that commonality to say, hey, would love to get together with you. Would you, want to go to this market together? And then from there, it's remembering what they love doing. So they remember, oh, you know what? Jazz didn't forget about me. And then I'm able to get back on track. But really, you need to have that face-to-face meeting again, in my opinion, to rebuild that relationship. And then from there, we're back on the, we're smooth sailing.
Right. And okay, do you remember all those details, or do you have some kind of note, like is that in your spreadsheet? How would you remember that if you have 600 connections?
Yeah. So there's going to be some people that I do not have that detail on, truthfully, right? Some of those connections that I would have made at the chamber, for example, I'm not going to get to know all those details. But if it's a close partner, I would have it in my spreadsheet, or truthfully, I'd probably remember it.
Right. Okay. See, I don't trust my memory. So one of the things I started doing is in my contact cards under info, you can keep notes. Like I can do it. My kids will mention something that they like. I'm like, oh, that's a good present idea. And then I'll just click on info when they're not looking and just write it in there right away so that I don't forget. Because if I wait an hour, it's like, what was it they said they liked? So I found that to be helpful because then when I click on their contact, I can jump to the actual list of things that I've kept track of. And I found that to be helpful.
Imagine all the my kids are a bit younger, so I still have to coordinate, what my kids are doing, and so I'll have Lisa, so and so's mom, right? Because I won't always remember who they are.
Right. Yeah. So I always found it easy to remember the kids' names sometimes than the parents' names.
Right.
So I don't know why. Yeah. I remember the kid and be like, oh, that's person. I'm like, I don't know the parent's name. Okay. So is there any other advice you'd give to mortgage brokers listening that are trying to build the business and do it through, more traditional networking and relationship building?
No. The only other thing I would say is you do need to you have to push outside your comfort zone. So, even though meeting people in person or picking up the phone may not be natural, it will bring you business. And so for me personally, I run a very lean business. I do not spend any money unless I can see that it is going to impact directly to my net dollar. So, I don't spend money on a fancy office. I really, I value relationships, so I will spend more money in that area to make sure that people feel that they are, being taken care of and appreciated. But it's just, you just gotta push yourself, go do it. When I was young, one of my good friends used to say that Jazz would make a friend and save $1. And it was
that was
funny,
your two specialties.
Yeah, it was funny. We were young, and that's what I would do. I would like make friends with people, and they would let us into the bar or what have you. And that skill from when I was young and used to work at Eastside Mario's. Everybody has a customer, everyone has a client, and you just need to show up and do a great job, and it will circle around. But you have to make sure that you're still being remembered. You can't just do a great job and be done, because they're going to forget about you.
Right. What's the best business advice you've ever received?
Oh,
I know I just dropped that one. I'm going to give you a second. I'm going to talk so you have a second to think.
Okay.
I literally sideswiped you that because we went from one topic to the next.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I didn't grow up with a family in business. I didn't grow up with, that's one of the interesting things is like my friends, my close friends are all salaried employees. They're not business owners because that's not what I had done for the, 16 years. So I think when I think of, what most people who know me say is that I just need to go and you just got to do it. And I know from you as well, like listening to your podcast for as long, done is better than perfect. That is hard for me, which is why my CRM isn't fully up and running. And also even, I came from a world where basically I didn't tell people what I did for work to now, being on social media and having to tell everybody how I can help them with their mortgage. That was really, really difficult for me. And I participated in a challenge that you had in 2022. It was called the Cash Flow Challenge.
Oh, yes. I remember that.
Yes. Yeah. And it was something for me that pushed me so far out of my comfort zone. But once I was there, I had the momentum to keep going. So it really, you just have to do it. And you're going to adjust as you go, but you're going to find the pieces that work for you. I also don't think there's also a piece of where as mortgage professionals, there's so much amazing information coming at us on ways that we can build our business. You can't do it all. So focus
you don't need them all. You don't need them all.
Like focus on the 3 to 5 things that you love doing and that work for you. And, just focus on those.
What did you have when you had a hoodie? What did you have on it again that got conversations?
Oh, my sweater. Cash Flow Challenge.
Cash Flow Challenge. Yeah. So people be like, what is that? And then this was back when people,
Because Scott, at the time, I was so nervous to tell people what I did for work. Like it wasn't organic for me to share that. And so I wore this sweater for 90 days. I had 3 different sweaters. I wore them for 90 days. And everywhere I went, I wore them to the point where people would see me at the arena and they've seen me for 3 years. They've never known what I've done for work. And they're saying, what's on your shirt? And all of a sudden I could organically feel like, oh, you know what? I'm doing this challenge. I'm helping families save money. And I'm actually a mortgage broker. Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Did you get any business from that you can think of?
I think I may have got one file. I don't remember off the top of my head. But what I will say is it would be hard to track because it opened up so
many conversations.
It opened up so many conversations, and it made me feel so much more comfortable on Instagram.
It forced you to actually have more conversations, which then got you better at them. So, that's so good. I remember that now. So where can people find you online? So looking for you.
You can find me at jazzmortgages.ca, or Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the exciting places.
Yeah, awesome. Well, hey, thanks for chatting with me, Jazz. This was a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see you continue to grow your business and put in a little bit of technology, but don't take away the human component because, as we were saying before we turned on the recording, technology is great, but it's not going to replace the relationships. Like that's the one thing AI is never going be able to, I don't think anyways, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it'll replace a real human connection.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening, and hopefully you got some inspiration from my conversation with Jazz. And it's really the basics. It's the fundamentals that everybody starts to, or not everybody, most people forget and start to slip on. And as they say in football, it's blocking and tackling, and the fundamentals are what will make you a fortune. And Jazz has obviously figured that out. And I love this conversation. So if you're listening to this and you're a mortgage broker, and one of the ways you want to build out your database and build better connections with your clients, there's a cool tool called ownwell.ca, and they're sponsor of our show. And I love these guys. That it basically allows homeowners to track their home equity and buying power, and it creates all kinds of conversations around their home. And the open rates on these reports that get sent out monthly are 60 to 80%, which is extremely high for something that when you typically, if you're honest, how many emails do you look at? You check that out at ownwell.ca. Also, one other thing for you to check out. So once a week, I create an email called the 321 email, where I share with you the best ideas that I found, content ideas that you can take and implement your business. And if you follow me on social or you click on this podcast, you can get on that email list. I promise you, some of our emails have a 5% click rate because we jam so much value in these emails. So check that out. The 321 email that I send out every Thursday, get on that list. And I promise you, there's tons and tons of gold on there. Check it out. Thanks again for listening. And as I always say, there's no problem in your mortgage business that hasn't already been solved. Your problem is who's got the answer. This podcast is designed to provide you some of those answers. Thanks for listening. I'm Scott Peckford. I will see you on the next episode.